All right, we're going to look at solving quadratic equations. So solving quadratic equations allows us to find x-intercepts, which can allow us to quickly graph the quadratic by using a and then the distance between the x-intercepts. So we'll look at that soon. All right, so let's remind ourselves about factoring as well. So solving quadratic equations, I'm going to replace y with 0 because I'm finding an x-intercept. And it doesn't matter if you put x squared plus 8x plus 7 equals 0 or 0 equals. It makes absolutely no difference. If you want to flip it around, you can. The focus is on factoring this. So remember, with trinomials, 3 terms, I want numbers that multiply to be the last term. So multiply to be 7 and add to be the middle term. So add to be 8. All right, so numbers that multiply to be 7 and add to be 8 would be positive 7 and positive 1, or negative 7 and negative 1. But I need for it to add to be positive 8, so I want positive 7 and positive 1. So x plus 7, x plus 1, and then the 0 product property says if I have products, so this time I have 2 products, the parentheses, equal to 0, then either this factor is equal to 0 or this factor can be equal to 0, and it'll make the equation true. So checking that, if I plug in negative 7 here and here, I get negative 7 plus 7, so I get 0 here. I get negative 7 plus 1, which is negative 6, but 0 multiplied by negative 6 is 0. Same thing happens with negative 1, except it makes this product 0. All right, pause the video and see if you can factor number 2. If you remember how to factor from Algebra 1, you probably did a little bit in geometry. So go ahead and pause the video. All right, so now that you're back, hopefully you said you want numbers that multiply to be negative 90 and add to be negative 1. And so those numbers would be negative 10 and positive 1. Then I set each factor equal to 0 and add 10 to both sides, set this factor equal to 0, subtract 1 from both sides, and those are my 2 x-intercepts. So when I graph, just quickly, I'll graph this. I have an x-intercept at 10, and I have an x-intercept at negative 1. And I can find the vertex between the two. I can use vertex formula to find it. I know the parabola opens up because there's a positive 1. So we can target the vertex and the y-intercept. We know the y-intercept is at negative 90 way down here, right? So, all right, let's try these 2 out. So lots of things we can find now, right? Okay, so notice the difference. There is now a number in front of x squared that we cannot get rid of. Like, we can't factor it out. It's not nice. So I'm going to create 4 terms. So I'm going to factor by grouping. I'm going to create 4 terms. This is called the AC method. Your teacher talked about that. So I'm going to multiply a and c. So remember the y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. I'm multiplying a and c together. So multiplying a and c together, I want numbers that multiply to be negative 15 and add to be negative 2. So that would be, I know 5 times 3 is 15. I want negative 5 because I want those numbers to add to be negative 2. Now I replace this middle term with 2 terms. So I have 0, right? 0 equals 3x squared. So replacing now, minus 5x plus 3x minus 5. So I have replaced this middle with these 2 guys right here. All right, now I'm going to factor by grouping. All right, so I'm going to group these 2 together and factor out what's common, and I'm going to group these 2 together and factor out what's common. So just between these 2, there's an x that's common, so I factor out an x, and that leaves me 3x minus 5. And between these 2, I don't have anything in common, so I'm going to put plus 1, 3x minus 5. Now here's the deal. I only have 2 terms now. Do you see the 2 terms? This one and this one. I want to factor out what's common with those 2 terms. which would be a 3x minus 5. So I just factored that out. Do you see what's left over? An x plus 1. So what's inside the parentheses gets factored out. What's outside the parentheses is what's left over. That goes in a parenthesis. And then I can set these guys equal to 0 and solve. So I'll let you do that. You can finish that up. That's factor number 4. So I multiply 3 and 4 together, and I get 12. So I want numbers that multiply to be 12 and add to be -8. So you want to think about that for a second. And I got 12 because I did 3 times 4, so A times C. So 6 times 2, 1 times 12, 3 times 4, right? But 6 plus 2 is 8, so I think I can stop there. But I want -8, so these both need to be negative, all right? So I have -6 plus -2, and I'm going to throw an x with those, and I'm going to replace this -8x with that. So 0 equals 3x squared minus 6x minus 2x plus 4. Now we factor by grouping. So I am grouping these two together and these two together. All right, so in the first set, I'm going to factor out a 3 and an x because that's the common factor. So I look at numbers, take out the highest number I can possibly take out, and then take out the variable if you can. All right, so I'm dividing. So when I factor something out, it's dividing. So I'm dividing by 3x, that leaves me an x. Divide 6 by 3, that leaves me a 2. I took out the x, it's gone. All right, with these two guys, notice I have a negative and then a positive. I want a positive and then a negative. So I'm going to take out a -2. That's going to leave me a positive x minus 2 because that was a plus 4. All right, so do you see my parentheses exactly match? And they have to. So I'm going to factor out. If your parentheses don't exactly match, then go back and check your factoring. I'm going to factor out the x minus 2. That leaves me 3x minus 2. Now I can use the 0 product property and set each factor equal to 0 and then solve for x, and that gives me my x-intercepts. I'll let you finish those last two, and I will see you guys soon. Drop your questions at the end of the video.